This program is proudly brought to you by the Peel Dance Bar, corner of Peel and Wellington Streets, Collingwood.
G'day, this is blah blah blah. We're sitting around a house in Fitzroy, the kitchen, just having a joint like we used to. What we're talking about today is not drug usage, because I've got a cop next to me. We're talking about a group called Young Gays. It was 22 years ago this month that this diverse and pretty weird and wacky bunch of people got together and created this group. It was run by the, inverted commas, the gay, lesbian, queer youth at its time. But I want to introduce my guests. I want to start over here with Bill Calder. Now, Bill Calder ended up as a member of the International Socialists in the Kerr Street House. He was a bit of a radical. He now owns an empire of newspapers. And what have you got now, capitalist?
B News, Melbourne Star, B Pages. I think that's it.
So he started as a collective member. In fact, I think it was the first Young Gays newsletter. And look where you've ended up now, 22 years later. Now, next to Bill was another member of the Kerr Street household, Alison Thorne. Now, Alison, you've been known for years. You came out, you got sacked by the Education Department because you took that stand on those false charges of paedophilia. You've just been the Senate. Tell us about that.
Well, I've been pre-selected to head the Socialist Alliance Senate ticket for the upcoming federal elections. So, very excited about that. We're going to give Howard what for, and we're going to be the real working class alternative that Beasley isn't.
Right, be warned about gay youth groups. This is how some of them end up. And then the other side of me is this guy who used to hang around, Andy Faulkner, who's actually the president of Galpin, which is the Gay and Lesbian Employees...
First Employees Network.
And he's the president. And he ended up as a cop and used to go to the rallies. Now, Andy, tell us what happened in that time period, very briefly.
Very briefly, I was taken under the wing by Alison, and she sort of like introduced me into the gay social and political lifestyle, along with a lot of other young gay members. And I attended lots of rallies and protested for lots of things, and then progressed and did a totally unexpected move and joined the police force way back in 1982.
And had to go in the closet for 14 years to protect yourself so you weren't bashed and killed by the cops. But we'll come back to that in a minute. Paul Miller, you were a waif. You were a homeless street kid. How old were you, 17 or something?
17.
17. And what do you do now?
I'm just a wage slave these days. I've lost the politics.
But you've also adopted a kid at the same time to look after him.
Yeah,
That's cool.
Become a single gay mum, which when you're 37 and a gay male, you really don't expect it's going to happen to you.
Yeah, you're finally a mum. Now, going around, Bruce, now, people may like have seen Bruce's face. He had this car, what was it, the blue...
The old Datsun Bluebird.
Right, and you're a little radical boy wanting a social life and wanting to meet interesting people. You now manage DTs, but you came through the Monash Gay Collective.
Yes, Monash Gay Style.
And you lived in the Kerr Street house as well.
Oh yes, and a very interesting time it was. And very educational.
And what was the slogan? Did you sleep with 100 people or subvert 100 people into the political process?
Oh, I think that was the slogan put upon me, and I don't ever believe I would have said anything like that at all.
Okay, these are some members of Young Gays. Now, who wants to start and tell us how it all began? Now, before we do this, there's this book that Bill wrote many years ago on the history of Young Gays from September 79 to January 81. Propaganda crap. He wrote it and had to push and get it together for the Stonewall launch. How many years ago?
84, I think.
84.
So a couple of years after the group ended.
You're the historian. You tell us your version and I'll tell you my version of how it started.
Well, I wasn't actually there at the start, I have to confess. We'll have to...
Okay, we'll go back. Alison, you start.
Okay, well, you know, like my recollection, history is always about different people's memories, but Young Gays grew out of the 5th National Homosexual Conference, which took place in August, if my memory serves me, 1979, and we had a workshop on Young Gays, and we decided to set up a Young Gays group. And I guess part of what we were about at the time, we were saying we wanted to be heard, that we didn't want to just be about sort of stuffing envelopes. Yeah. And so we formed Young Gays to be a social group, a support group, a political group, a voice basically for young gay men and lesbians
Right,
within the
that
gay
was
liberation
22 years ago.
movement. Correct, yes.
How old were you?
I was 19 at the time.
And also, I've got to tell you right now, she was a brown owl as well.
Thank you,
And Alison,
Graham.
I'm sorry, Alison, I had to say. And her organisation skills came from the lesbian movement, the Girl Guide.
Same
movement.
thing, right?
Same thing, exactly. Absolutely the
Okay,
same.
thank you, Baden Powell. I'm
Thank you,
always
Hayden. That's what I've
prepared.
got too. You certainly are. So that's how it started. I remember there was you, Russell, Brian, a bunch of us, and that's how it all happened, out of the 5th National Homosexual Conference, and we ended up always meeting for a long time at the Universal
Workshop in
on the first
Fitzroy.
floor, which is now the Universal Theatre,
Still there.
on
isn't
those awful wooden seats, and thank God they've gone. Now, I want to go over to you lot. Andy, how did you get involved?
I went off to a rally. There was a big gay rally in the city. I went off to my first gay party the same night, and guy I met there told me about young gays, and the next day I was off at my first young gays meeting, and it was sort of like heaven on an icy pole stick, just finding all these gay people that I could actually interrelate with for the first time in my life.
But how old were you?
I was 17.
And who was that guy?
He was a guy I met at the party.
Can't remember his name.
Kevin or Terry or something like
Because
that.
I've got to be quite honest, Bill didn't know this till today. I slept with his boyfriend 22 years ago. But this is the kind of stuff that comes out. I mean,
A dangerous group it was.
It
wasn't
was, it
Very
was.
subversive.
this is a bunch of people. You can't see them. We're not going to show you. But we're looking through these photographs that Ken Allison took.
Yes.
We lost track of Ken 20 years ago. He's in Sydney, who knows?
Last heard he was going to set up he was going to be king of the gay media in Australia, and sorry Ken, wherever you are out there.
Yeah, Bill got the gig. And we all look pretty strange. We all had hair and, well, I mean, you know, all that kind of look. Now, what was Young Gays to you, Bruce?
Well, to me, it was a way of finding, connecting people. You know, I was 17, 18 at the time. My sexuality had never been a problem to me, but I hadn't met a lot of other people of my age who were gay. And at that time, to be young and gay and out was to be political. I mean, people trying to say, is it political, is it social? But it all, to me, it was all involved in one, you know, being young and gay and out. You know, I was at teachers' college, I turn up one week I'm there, next week I walk in and how do you presume I'm heterosexual on my t-shirt, and the girl I'd slept with 2 weeks before dropped dead on the floor in the cafeteria and wondered what was going on. So that were the changes going on in my life, and the Young Gays just helped facilitate that, opened my mind and eyes up to a lot of things that were going on around. You know, I'd grown up in a country town, I think I was pretty naive about lots of things at that time.
And let's go back to it. You now manage DT's, a filthy homosexual lesbian joint in Richmond, which we wouldn't go to ourselves. But going back to that era, the only gay bars I can remember, obviously the Woolshed Bar, Smarties at the Car in Town, Peter Lucas, that's where I met you. We'd get to those 2.5 years, he wouldn't come on television. And
University Club.
University Club, 100 Collins
And
Street.
Chaps.
At
Babes
on Monday night, which I thought was really interesting because we didn't have the difference happening between the commercial sector, and I want to talk about this in a minute, but the fact that the young gays, the radicals, including Adam Carr, had jobs at Babes, at gay bars. Now, how did that occur? Weren't the gay bars?
Well, I mean, people had to work. I mean, just like it is now. I mean,
Yeah.
people were students, you know, needed to make a living. And I made a living by, you know, having my ears assaulted by very loud music, which I'm sure would have been happening if I'd been there on the dance floor as well. You know, pouring drinks and working at Babes, and that's how it
It'd be
happened.
like the queer group now working at a gay venue.
But I think also in those days, I mean, the gay venues were one of the very few places where you go there and be gay. I think the gay world has extended its network out where you can go down to the streets, you can go to different jobs and be totally yourself. I mean, back in those days, if you're a radical gay and didn't want to hide it, or you didn't want to hide it anyway, it was still hard to go to work and do it, where you could go along to a gay bar, you'd party, meet your friends, work, and it'd be the whole lot in one. I think the network these days for people to go out and find social options that they can do, or work options that they can do and still be totally themselves, is larger than it was in those days.
There wasn't
That
even
might
a
have been
media
part
then.
of it.
There was no media, there was hardly any groups, there was a few fledgling support groups but and activist groups, but
Yeah.
there was just a handful of groups. I mean, now, like listed in our illustrious papers, there's 52 to 100 groups who regularly meet and are properly organised. There's a whole range of media, and as Bruce says, there was 3 or 4 venues that held perhaps one night a week, and that was it. That was the gay community back then.
Yeah, well, I think about there was the Moore Street, what was that?
Yes.
The activist group. There was us.
Gay Rap was the Moore Street
Gay
group.
Rap.
Yeah.
Yep. So there were very few groups that existed. So I suppose like 22 years ago, we were a gay youth group, which we ran ourselves.
And that's why, like, the political groups could be social groups, because you didn't have a choice. It's 6 groups and 5 of them were political, and then you wanted some social contact, so that's what you went through.
And it tried to be everything.
Yes,
Young gays tried to be everything, because nobody else was being anything.
Well, it had to be, because for the older groups, I'm going to gay rap, and because you were involved with young gays, because you were a young person, you were second class in those days. There was nothing else to it. So even if we weren't political when you went into young gays, it was likely you were going to be, because even if in the gay community at the time, we didn't exist that much.
Well, did you go there for political purposes, or did you go for social purposes, Paul? But you were home as a little bit of trash.
I went for support.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't homeless. I could have gone and slept with my mum in Geelong, back at home again, but tumultuous 2-week coming out period coincided with coming back to Melbourne and going, young guys, ring the contact phone number, and was helped into housing, short-term housing, which was great. So the support was there for me from day one.
Yeah.
The social came later, the political came later.
Yeah. Andy, before you were a big fascist policeman? When you were a young boy, a young guys, what did you get out of it?
Well, as I said before, basically it was the social support aspect of it was the initial motivation, because until that time I didn't know anything about any gay community existing at all, and it was only because I've been steered by a very considerate teacher at school and given the context initially that I got involved, and it just enabled me to explore my own lifestyle, basically.
And take it from there.
Yeah.
Because in the next segment, I want to talk about highlights of what people did, the Warburton trips, the brawls, the violence, the kidnappings and stuff like that. This is blah, blah, blah. This is a group of old young gays who are all young gays. And who was the youngest? You were 16?
I would have been pretty close to... No, I was 17. We had 15, 16-year-olds.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and this is when we were really illegal, and it was a group that ran itself. And what do you reckon the highlight with the volleyball team, the film collective? We probably had like a regular 50, 60
up to 100 meetings.
Saturday afternoon.
Because there was nothing else there. It was weird. This is Young Gays. Old Young Gays, we're out of here. Be back next break. Thanks. Yes, you are. I'm sorry. No, it's okay.
You're on.
Oh, we're on. Sorry. This is blah, blah, blah. This is Young Gays. It was like 22 years ago we had this group, and we were considered to be radicals. Is there any luck of a camera getting a close-up of that shot? That particular shot is Russell, Alison, and some other dude. This was 22 years ago, kind of stuff.
With hair.
Lots of hair.
Thank you, thank you. And we've all ended up in different ways doing different things. I want to show this other photograph of these members of the IS, radicals like Bill. Okay, Bill, Alison tried to get you to join, but it never happened. And I can't say, who's the other person?
Terry.
Terry, right. Okay, now it was a social support group, it was political. There weren't their bars, there weren't the groups. And we used to do activities. Now, there were weird things. We'll come back to the film collective later. We'll come back to the volleyball later. We'll come back to the summer offensive stuff, because it was pretty radical stuff we were doing. It was illegal. You were arrested, being bashed. But let's go to Warburton. Now, you start. Was it your first time?
That was my start, yes, Warburton. I'd just come out probably 6 months earlier than the Warburton trip, and had kind of run back into my shell, having touched on the gay community, and the only thing I actually did was work at Babes. It was kind of my little refuge point behind the bar as I looked out over that gay world there. And at the end of the night of working, and Alison was working there too, she'd tell me all the stories about the great revolution out there and all the things Young Gays was up to, and I'd listen in awe. And leading up to this weekend in Warburton, she invited me to come along, and I went for the social sides, not the politics at that stage,
So was that Dyke Sue, whatever's family house we stayed in, by the water?
Could be.
What
I
was
wasn't
it?
sure
It
who
wasn't
owned
by
it.
the water. It
No, it
was
was by
on
the river.
Oh, by the river.
Yeah, by the river.
It was on.
Remember?
It was on a hill.
We all went nude swimming the next day or something like that, or you wounded people.
Well,
so we
some
went
of
to
you
the
did.
pub. Let's get to the point. You went to the Warburton
Okay,
pub.
Warburton, we went to the pub and were enjoying ourselves, carrying on, getting pissed. A few of us were kissing. And the local lads took it on themselves to teach us our place in the world and launched their assault. And I actually got grabbed from behind and pinned. So they obviously had the sort of, who were the biggest ones, take them out and just remove them from the scuffle. And the worst of the kissing offenders got duly punched up by the locals. And we were eventually all scurried home. I was probably one of the last out, and one of the women in the group, we sort of were the last two, I think, getting out, and we sort of looked at each other and decided to just hold hands and quietly walk out.
It was a full-on pub brawl,
Yeah.
and we were all like,
Yeah.
teenagers kind of stuff. We all come out, and we all thought we could change the world.
Yeah.
And then the car, you ran off the road.
Well, yes, that's the main thing that I remember about Warburton. My car skidding off the road, and there was a saucepan actually full of cold rice, and it sort of splattered sort of all over us as we went off the road and sort of staggered out with bits of rice stuck all over us. So it was quite a dramatic weekend all
It
around.
was.
Pub brawls and, car accidents and,
rushing people to hospital with neck injuries.
neck injuries, yes.
What we're trying to explain here, you didn't go to Warburton, either of you? Okay, they were dags. What we're trying to explain is that, and I had great sex with Peter Lucas, and I got very stoned a lot of the time. And that's why I wasn't at the pub, I was at home.
We would have won if you were there.
Absolutely. I was rooting a hairdresser, wasn't I? I wasn't fucking interested in that crap. But what we're trying to say, it was this youth group 22 years ago, and it's different to the groups now, because we were talking before, and very much so, queer is kind of like our political part of young gays, whereas minus 18 is like our social part of young gays. But we ran it all ourselves. We didn't know much. And even now Quentin Buckle would pop in and give us advice. What really stuck out in your mind?
The main thing was that it was everything. It was a social group where we supported each other and we educated each other. And education was along the lines of politics, sexual politics. It was an all-encompassing. There was you couldn't really put it into one little box.
The one thing I really liked was, although because you force a lot of different minds to be together, I learned when I was young that people can have different opinions and still be nice people and still get on with each other. I think the problem is now there's probably a lot of groups you get a like-minded thinking people all together and a like-minded thinking there, and it's pretty hard to learn and grow when you're all, what I found, because I said when we were living in Kearney Street, there was I think 2 or 3 different socialist parties that people were members on, one to put one poster up and another one to put another poster up, and I thought it was fabulous, it's a good way of learning, but these people were friends at the same time, they got on, they might have had different views or different ideas or different same points with different ways to get there, but that socially they got on and they were still friends and respected each other, and that's when you're very young to see that is like, oh, that's really good. You don't have to think the same as everyone else for them to like you and get on with them and respect in each other's way.
And go back to, let's go to the boycott, jump in here. Clinton Walsh, who's president of the Pride Awards, I don't know what, Clinton was a promoter and ran the Ashley's boycott. And that was about lots of things. The IS were involved, the Communist Party were involved, but we weren't involved in politics, of course we all were. And there was the social side and the boycott. Who wants to talk about the boycott? Because I want to come back to something that happened to you. Who wants to talk about the boycott?
I think most of us have got an angle on it.
Yep.
I mean, it was, I guess I leapt into a much more political stance with that. I mean, there'd been this ongoing angst in the group that the women had dropped out of the group and accused us of being too much of a boys' group. And, I mean, all of these concepts were brand new to me, and I was kind of trying to understand them and what they meant, and decided that I wasn't sexist and didn't want the group to be sexist.
Have you seen his newspaper lately?
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to jump in and mention that, Bill.
Yeah. And so I think it was part of that angst for the group to try to demonstrate its credentials, if you like, that along came Clinton with with his comments after some of the toilets were broken at the
lesbians.
nightclub by
By
lesbians.
lesbians,
yes.
they still break
So
them.
he
And
said.
Allegedly, like the same crap, 20 years later at the Glass House.
But he then banned lesbians from the club, and young gays took, after some brief discussion, I don't think there was a lot, but decided to take a position and take on the world and prove our worth, and we ran a picket line the following week down there that attracted a great deal of attention and more.
It was very exciting. I mean, what we were doing was we were taking a stand against sexism.
Yeah.
We were taking a stand against, like a bar promoter, someone who we saw as a capitalist who was, having a go against lesbians in, like the most unfounded way. And young gays were saying basically, look, like that's not on. We're not going to tolerate that, we're not going to tolerate that crap. We want our bars to be places where we can go and have fun, not places where, one section of the community ends up vilified. And I think, like probably a lot of these issues are still certainly around today. And that's really what it was about. And for a lot of us, we've been asking all the big questions, why are gays and lesbians oppressed? And we actually realised that gay and lesbian oppression stemmed from sexism. And I think that for a lot of the gay men, it wasn't just a question of solidarity with lesbians, it was actually understanding that their own liberation was bound up with what was going on there, that they had no stake in sexism either.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And I want to just explain how heavy it got. Paul, tell us what happened to you.
Well, I chart the Ashley's boycotters for the beginning of the end of Young Gays.
Be right.
For a lot of people, things went downhill from there, and it was a very quick lesson in political naivety for me. Number one, until a few months ago when I spoke to Clinton, nobody, he says, actually asked him his side of a story all those years ago, and I think that was something very much of Young Gays. Well, he's saying differently now, who knows? But either way, I didn't know, I wasn't there, I was taking it all third hand, and very enthusiastically, no, you can't have sexism, no, you can't be oppressing women, you can't be oppressing gays, you're doing all of that. And happily went out and leafleted with Michael. I shared house with another young gay person. Off to Babes on a Monday night. Lovely pink leaflet outlining the story, but two small things appeared at the top of it: fists, and these were taken as being the symbols of international socialism. And suddenly, Young Gays was tied up with being international socialists, not being a young gay group ourselves, but someone was pulling our strings. And as a result of that, myself and Ken Ellison, who was writing for Campaign at the time, and one of our older young gays who was a phenomenal resource to the group in terms of media and was one of the instigators of the film collective. We were picked up in a car from Ken's house, as I recall, and told, you're coming with us, someone wants to speak to you. We were driven to a house in Drummond Street, Carlton, and ushered inside, left in a room, and two of the political heavyweights of the gay community came and spoke to us, told us why we were so politically naive, where we'd gone wrong, and how we had, between the pair of us, I being 17 and Ken being all of about 23 at that stage, had completely split the gay community throughout the entire country. We were then put back in the car and taken home.
There was certainly drama around it.
But the fact that we were trying to do so much and change the world and have a social group, and there was this volleyball team. Go on, what was it called?
The ideologically sound volleyball society.
What colour did we wear?
We were in the face of
Still love it.
Yeah, we were in the face of every possible way.
We played in the mainstream volleyball comp, and I think it took us
At
about
Princess
3 months
Hill High
to win a
School.
point. We had members on our team who squealed when the ball came back.
Look, Sarah, imagine, you remember what it was like. Imagine some of the people watching, or the people that go to your pub now, who would have no idea and understanding what it was all about. Were there things you hated about Young Gays, or about a gay youth group that we all ran together?
I hated being told that I was politically worthless, and there was an element of that to it.
Yeah.
The political correctness sometimes went too far. It was ideologically unsound. Well, I was lucky. I was only ideologically underdeveloped, but I don't think I ever got too ideologically sound. I think I failed and took the wrong turn somewhere along the line.
But you made it out. What about you, Andy?
There wasn't really anything I didn't like about it. It was part of my life that was very, very important. Obviously, the politics side of it didn't work with me, obviously.
Well, it did. You used to go to rallies.
Yes, I did.
And so you just became a cop and went in the closet for 14 years.
Yeah.
And that must have been a really weird thing.
Now you're transforming the police force.
Yeah. So
Well, as I say, you can only change something from within, so...
that's good. It's kind of
the
weird.
group was just slowly doing it.
This is blah, blah, blah. This is old, young gays. We're coming back to the final segment. I'm going to tell you where people ended up. It's a bit like, give you a child for 7 years of age and not sure what happens to them. We're out of here. Blah, blah, blah.
What should young gays groups do today?
This is blah, blah, blah. We're a bunch of old young gays 22 years ago. Paul Miller just turned around and said, because I said, where do we want to take this from into this final segment? What do we get out of it? And he said, well, we've all got friendships from, 22 years ago because we actually joined a queer youth group. We created a queer youth group where there was nothing. We got involved politically, socially, we took drugs, and we're still friends to this day. And a lot of our members are dead because we went through the HIV/AIDS era and we buried a lot of the group. And there were two, Tim Conograve and John Callio. Tim wrote the book Holding the Man about what happened to them in their life, and they were really good political animals and so pretty and handsome too. And I slept with John Callio too, I've got to tell you. Apart from your boyfriend.
They were our pin-up couple.
They were the complete pin-up couple, and they were just, and they all died of HIV, which was a real pity. You got friendship out of it.
20 years on, I'm still in touch with people I met at Young Gays.
And like, seriously, like there were a regular of 100 people on a regular Saturday afternoon meetings?
You wouldn't miss it. Some weeks we might get 50, some weeks we might get 100, but there was a phenomenal cross-section of young gay people and lesbians there. We didn't say young gay men and lesbians in, we were all just young gays. But, yeah, people from all walks of life. We had people from the army, people from the National Socialists sitting in one room.
Well, Trevor Lane was in the army, reserve.
He was too.
Yeah. But we're pretty diverse, and you consider we are still to this day. Now, Bruce runs DTs, Paul's a consultant, little Andy, he's a head cop, and Alison's, still a socialist fucking Senate running, running
Senator-elect.
so on, Senator-elect, and Bill runs queer newspapers, and they're actually still in the same faction because they're having dinner tonight, and the other side of the household wasn't invited.
You could go off and make a film.
And we did go off and make a film.
I'll go to a bar and drink.
Okay, I used to drink a lot and take a few drugs, but I've changed, Bruce, as you know. But we did go off and make a film. We set up this thing, the Film Collective, and we didn't know a lot of how to make films, and out of that I ended up at film school, and out of that, and in many ways, Bent TV is the extension of what the Film Collective started.
But I think that's a part of it. The young gays, as I said before, is finding yourself as well as what everyone else, what you wanted, what direction you want to go. It gave you a lot of different inputs and you could connect with one of them, maybe inputs you wouldn't have got at any other place, and it has led you out to the right direction, going to whatever it is, film, TV, newspapers, political career or whatever, and it threw so many different options at you because there were different peoples and different things done. And when you're young and still trying to find out what do I want to do, who do I want to be, what do I want to think, and to have that input was incredible, I think.
Yeah, an important apprenticeship. I mean, it was so stimulating.
Yes.
I mean, so many different people, so many different angles, so many different points of view. And I mean, Paul, what you were saying about the friendships, I think was very important, but also because so many people were involved, just the acquaintances as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just fantastic sort of being out now within the queer community and just all the time, just bumping into people, faces, it's fantastic.
Do you remember we used to go, because that used to be, I remember Smarties as a classic, because it was Peter Lucas. He was pretty, you're right, actually, still is.
He's gorgeous.
He was gorgeous, okay. It only lasted for 2.5 years, the bastard. Never slept with a hairdresser. But I remember going out to, whether it be Babes on a Monday night or Smarties on a Saturday night, as a group.
There was always a young gays corner.
Yeah.
Always there.
Which is very much a bit like Bent TV, except we don't have the drinking or the drug problem that we used to have in that era. But it's very much that kind of thing. And it's like when the volleyball team comes into your hotel, into DTs, and you see these groups now. But there wasn't the groups then. What did we do wrong? How did we collapse?
I think it might be a bit of a catch-22 situation where in those days, because there wasn't a lot of things, we all had to join together, whether we wanted to or not. And it's the price we pay, maybe, of our greater freedoms is our connections to each other maybe aren't as close and are more diverse. And in a way that causes problems, you know, maybe that's a price we have to pay. I think you find groups when they are squashed together, no matter how different they think, they join, they have to work together. A lot more options today, I mean, and I'll take today over that day any day. I think, you know, as the price we do pay is maybe we lose a bit of that cohesion and stuff like that, but the options today are just so much more endless.
Huge.
But it does divide people and drift away. It doesn't give them a reason to join together, so that could be part of it. Well, I'm sure the young gays out there today are having just as wonderful time as we did.
Oh, look, I'm sure they are. But, I mean, there wasn't a -18.
Well, they've got more
wasn't a queer
choice.
group.
They've got a little more choice. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a bigger mainstream gay community to fit into, but even in the youth group thing, I mean, as you were saying, I mean, there's there is a political gay group and there's a very social gay group. So, I mean, that was probably the most volatile aspect about young gays. You
Yep.
were shoving political people who generally didn't know much about it but were, you know, keen. And there was a lot more reason for political activism, but you were shoving them in with people that just wanted to find some friends and some support,
Yep.
and demanding that we all move forward together. It was a very volatile situation, and
I think
the
we're-
Ashleys trigger fired it apart, really.
We're actually, I think, in a really similar kind of period right now. I wrote an article for the Freedom Socialist Bulletin, which was called S11 Revives a New Spirit of Queer Militancy. And I think, you know, like some of the heady days of young gays, the debate, the politics, that we're seeing a lot of that happening now with the queer militancy, with organising the queer bloc for 03, the protests against the Commonwealth Business Forum, and also Chogham in Brisbane. So, young queers out there, see you all, 03, 7 a.m, Hilton Hotel.
See, she hasn't
Queer bloc.
changed in 22 years. Now, apparently Tony Keenan said a couple of weeks ago on Profiles that he said he only came to young gays once or twice, and he ended up being a priest for 20 odd years. And he quotes us on television. He states, because Graham and Alison were too scary. Now, we weren't scary.
You could be.
Oh,
For
could
young,
be.
for young guys up to the age of 25, I was 17, I was at the lower end, but sometimes there are 15-year-olds, a 10-year age gap at that time is a lot of life experience. There's a lot of difference in
Yeah.
life experience and certainly political development. I think probably the best thing, the thing about young gays we'll never know the effect of, but I'm sure it was big, was those people that never came to young gays, but those that saw us. Those
Yeah.
that saw us on the streets, those that saw us playing volleyball. The Form 6 students as they were then when the film collective were going and filming in their classrooms with their teachers
Yeah.
and asking them questions about and telling them it was okay to be gay.
Yeah.
These people would see young gay people out there living their lives and happy to be doing so.
And that's when it was all illegal too. I mean, you know, we got arrested by cops then. Why'd you become a cop?
Basically, it's a question I sometimes ask myself, but it was a decision I made as a career thing that I wanted to pursue. I always liked helping people, and I perceived that it was an occupation where I could do that, and I have been able to do that, but at some prices.
Yeah.
The price for that was the fact that it was a very red-necked organisation, and I knew at the time I had to go back in the closet and did so. And fortunately, because of those problems that the department has had with a few of us, that situation has now changed, and we've got a new boss, and it's changing even more rapidly.
And just quickly, it's like the bake-off at DT's the other week. When we were standing there and we got cakes by the Richmond police station and something, we're standing there holding them thinking, well, if this was 10 years ago, they'd be all in here kicking their heads in instead of cooking cakes and taking them, so we can raise money sort of thing. And, you know,
Except the only thing is, Bruce, that, you know, like for some of us who are in fact, you know, like queer radicals, you know, like who were down at S11, it hasn't changed.
yeah,
You know, that's
whole
it.
thing,
That
yeah.
you know, like for some of us, the fear of police violence is, you know, like is very real.
Yeah. So it's looking at it from the other side as well, having been on both sides, that fear is the same as the police. The police are worried they're going to get their heads punched in, and like everything, the same as a lot of the issues with our community itself is just lack of communication. As you're saying, we have lots of groups now, but in some aspects I think we've got too many, because we say we've got a gay community, but we've got so like 1,000 little groups that are all off in their own little areas, which we had, as said, we had a group which was a whole lot of different people all put together. which is better.
Yeah, and do you want to make a film about it, Paul? Because really, seriously, we'll get the Constetner out and we'll make a film about the different factions and we'll lose the footage and the whole lot. Oh God, the things we went down, the nights. But you're actually right, going out to the schools and we were young, fags and dykes ourselves and going in there and doing shit like that.
And sort of going, like, we really are here in a high school saying, hey, yeah, we're fags and dykes and we're glad to be it, and we're at school in Coburg.
Yeah, that was pretty weird. Okay, we're about to get out of here shortly. Bruce, the best thing about a queer youth group, there were 100-odd members on a regular basis on Saturday afternoons. There was the volleyball team, there was the film collective, there was the summer offensive of politics, there was the boycott at Ashley's, there were the parties. What was the couple of best things in your mind that stick out? Like when you see customers come up to you at DT's?
Well, I don't know what the customers there did, but the best thing about it for me, I suppose, was the people, meeting the people, doing the things. I was never hugely political. I mean, I had my beliefs, but I wasn't one to go out and stuff like that. So, but I did learn a lot of the politics through there, and I think that was good. Yeah, but just meeting the people and having the bases, and it has affected me right through my life. I've gone to Darwin, I've gone through Queensland and everywhere else, Western Australia, and come back, and 22 years later, it's still affecting through, and very positively. They were very good days. And gave me a good foundation for today.
Bruce, I'm going to have to shut you up. We're about to go. This is Old Young Gays. We're a bunch, there's 6 of us here. It was a group of about 100 strong before these other groups. It was diverse. We've got left-wingers, we've got cops, we've got newspaper publishers, we've got bar owners, and of course, I'd changed dramatically too as well. I didn't drink or take drugs even that day. And we've got a queer television group now, which was our dream in the early days of the film collective. This is blah blah blah. Thank you for being here, young old gays or old young gays. We're out of here, and let's just talk about who didn't pay the rent last time when we go off air. Yeah. And if I ever smell Gestetner to get in my life, I will vomit.
Thank God we got rid of that.
I really will. So out of all that, your pre-selection now.
Yeah, what about it?
Right, it's great. It's great.
Isn't it good?
It's fabulous.
Yes.
It really is. And Bill's just launched his another new newspaper.
Yep.
Oh, that's it.
You win your seat and you got the front cover.
So what's your seat?
No, I need the front. Senate.
Senate.
So if you live in Victoria and you're on the electoral roll, if you wish.
This program is proudly brought to you by the Peel Dance Bar, corner of Peel and Wellington Streets, Collingwood.